Hey guys, what's going on? It's Colin here again. Very excited Colin here again. I'm excited because I got myself a nice big engine to tinker with. This is a 1923 Witte Model B. It's a 3 horsepower. That's the tag on it. And I'm very excited to work on this thing today and make a video of it. So this thing's actually got quite a story behind it, so I think what I'll do is I'll go over the story first, and then I'll start going over the engine, and then we can get into getting it running again. It might be a long story, just warning you guys, so if you guys don't like the stories, I'll put like a link somewhere on the screen for you that you can go to, and it should, or a timestamp rather, that you can go to skip the story. But for those of you guys who like a story, buckle up, this might be a long one. So, when I was maybe 2 years old, my family and I used to go to a local heritage festival in the fall, and I have very distinct memories of when I was very young. There'd be a whole lineup of engines, very much like the Power Association show I filmed. It would actually be those guys all lined up down this big field with antique cars on the other side too. And it was the coolest thing ever. And even at like 2 years old, I was drawn to the engines and whatnot. And I thought they were super cool. Gradually, a lot of guys stopped showing up for one reason or another, and it got to the point where there was one guy still showing up, and he brought one big green engine. It wasn't this one. It must have been like an 8 to 15 horse. The thing was massive. But I remember being fascinated by this thing. It was a big throttle governed, like I said, massive thing. And I probably bugged the crap out of the guy. All I wanted to see was him start it and just ask him questions about the thing. But he said that, I remember him saying very distinctly that he was very happy to see that a kid my age was interested in this stuff because his family really wasn't. So I thought that was cool. What I more recently, a guy in the Power Association, his name was Bob, he passed away, and he left behind a barn full of junk, and in that barn full of junk there were quite a few engines. Now, I later learned in talking to my friend Brad that the guy that I was talking to at 2 and 3 years old was actually the same guy. It was Bob back then. So I kind of, not only did I hear about a barn full of engines and wanted to go and get an engine, but the fact that I was like one of his engines makes it a little more special to me, it's just pretty cool. It was kind of a sad story with Bob, but that's not something I'm going to go into here. But his grandson was there auctioning off all the stuff. And boy, did he have quite a barn full of stuff. He was quite the collector, we shall say. There was just junk everywhere. I don't think it was, well, it was obviously his fault, but like I don't think things worked out exactly the way he wanted them to. But again, I'm not going to go into the story behind Bob. That's not prevalent to this video. But I decided that I wanted to go because I heard there were quite a few small engines and stuff there. I wasn't originally going to get a throttle governed or even a flywheel engine. But shortly before I went, my parents said, look, you've been buying a lot of engines recently and you just haven't had the time to work on them all. So go there, fine, but only buy one engine. Because we don't want you getting super overwhelmed with all these engines you've been buying. Which is fair because in all honesty, I have been buying more engines than I have time to work on. And they will all be subjects of future videos, but you don't know what they all are yet. But all in due time. But I agreed. I did make an arrangement that there would be a couple extra engines just because I had already arranged to get them. I got two parts Model B engines for my Model B. And I picked up a pump from my friend Brad that I had bought off of him a while back. We just happened to meet up there because it was out east, and it was the first time I was actually be able to meet up with him since I bought that thing. But I got in there and I was like a little kid in a candy shop. There were so many cool engines all over the place. There was a lot of junk there too. There was junk all over the place. There were a bunch of engines that were just in pieces. It was a complete mess in there. No electricity, and yeah, it was a mess. The roof leaked. But there were a lot of really cool pieces there, and this is after like 3 weeks of sales, so all the good stuff, if you will, had already been taken. But when I heard that I wouldn't be able to buy any more engines after this, I said, you know what? If I'm gonna go there and get an engine, I want a throttle governed engine, because I recently I've picked up 2 hit and miss engines. One of them you guys know about. It's the Fuller & Johnson over there. I picked up one other since then. I said, you know what, if I'm going to go there, I'm going to spend a couple extra bucks and I'm going to get myself a nice throttle governed engine because I have 2 hit and misses, so I'm going to get a throttle governed because I think they're equally cool. Between a throttle governed and a hit and miss is cooler. That's why I got them first. But now that I have two, I want a throttle governed. As I said like 3 times now. So I went there, and I ended up coming home with this and 2 other engines that we didn't originally agree upon. So my parents weren't exactly the most happy. But they said, you know what, fine, just no more engines till college. That's my punishment. Which honestly, I have more than enough to keep me busy till then, so I'm alright with that. But yeah, I push my luck sometimes. But I figured before I dive into the other ones, as cool as they are, I want to get started with this one because this is the most interesting one to me, and it's the one I've been most excited to tinker with. So, as I said, this is a 3-horse Witte from 1923. It's an open crank with spoked flywheels. It's got a flyball governor that you can clearly see, which I think all these things are awesome, by the way. That's why I'm pointing them out. Would have originally come with an EK mag, which would have gone here, and apparently that's kind of interesting because this would have been super early for an EK mag, but it looks like it's been there since since it left the factory, so I don't think it's been converted or anything. I actually did buy one for one of my other hit and miss engines, so I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably swap it between this one and that one. So for the purposes of getting this running, I'll throw it on here. But I'll either buy one more of those or I'll rig up some form of battery ignition for this thing. This is also, I've learned from talking to my friend Brad, this is also a kerosene engine based on this this carburetor. Because what you're supposed to do is put kerosene in the main tank and put gas in this little starting tank here. And you'll start it on gasoline, let it warm up, and then you can once it runs out, you can open this up and it will start running on the kerosene. Apparently they will run fine on, you just need to heat it up first to get it to run right on kerosene. But it's just a cool engine to me. I don't know why, but it is. It's got the pulley on it too, which is kind of cool. Not that I have anything to drive it with, or drive with it at the moment. But turns over freely. Has a little bit of compression, but it definitely needs some valve work. Also missing the oiler. That's not a huge deal, but otherwise it seems to be in pretty darn good shape. The cart's going to need a little help. I'm probably going to end up building something different out of what's here. These steel wheels are completely rusted on because, like I said, the roof leaked and there was, everything got wet. Actually, when I bought this, I don't know if it's still in there. No, when I bought this, there was actually a little puddle of water in that pipe there, which made me a little concerned, but I just wanted it too badly. This was the only throttle governed engine that was left at the place, by the way. I should mention that. But I think I did pretty darn well. I never buy anything at market value. I generally go far below market value, and I think I did pretty darn good with this engine too. But anyways, I figured in this video, this might end up being a little mini series, because it probably is going to be too much content for one video, even in a time-lapse form. I figured I'm start diving into this thing. I got to pull it apart. I got to do the valves. I got to pull the piston out, hone the cylinder, and I got to do a whole bunch of fun stuff. So, what do you say? Put you guys up on the tripod and we'll start the time-lapse up. So I'm gonna get to it. Alright, so something I want to try doing in these videos, so see if you guys like it or not, is kind of give you guys little progress updates in between the time lapses of what I'm either going to do or I'm currently in the middle of. So with this engine, I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is start by pulling the head off so I can take a look. I'll end up pulling the valves and also pulling the piston out so I can hone the cylinder. And we'll go from there. So let's start the time lapse now. Alright guys, so quick little update here. As you saw, I pulled the piston out. I had to hone out the cylinder a bit beforehand because there was quite a ridge of carbon buildup and crap in the front. I got the piston out. It's a hell of a piston too. Thing's like 4¼ inches in diameter and weighs, and it's heavy too. It's all cast iron. I don't even know what it weighs. But got that out, was able to hone the cylinder out as you saw, and I just finished scraping all the carbon off of this head. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to lap in these valves, and then I think after that I want to dive into this mixer quickly. I keep calling it a mixer. This is technically a carburetor. I'm going to pull this front plate off, make sure that this throttle moves freely and that everything's good in there. And then I'm probably going to have to replace the head gasket, but I got to unstick a ring on the piston and we can continue. So I'm going to start by lapping in these valves. Alright guys, so I just took care of the head there. I went ahead and lapped in the valves. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my valve lapping tools, these things. I couldn't get them to stick, and those slots in the top of the valve were not very good with the screwdrivers I had. The screwdrivers just kept slipping out because those slots were not very well cut. They have some crap in them. So what I ended up doing, as you saw, is I took the drill. I took the drill and lapped them in. That seems to have done a really good job. I also went ahead and just popped open the mixer and made sure everything was good in there. Keep calling it a mixer, it's really a carburetor. And I shot some WD-40 around the throttle shaft and freed that up. So the head is pretty much good. What we have to take a look at next is this piston, which, that's a freaking piston, guys. And this top ring is actually stuck, and there's a whole bunch of crap on it. So I'm going to go ahead and try and unstick this top ring without breaking it. And also go ahead and clean this thing up. So let's get to it. Alright, so that ring was pretty stuck. So as you can probably hear that hideous noise in the background, I put it into my ultrasonic cleaner in the hopes that it would free some stuff up. In the meantime, while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and pull this stuff apart. I want to go ahead and get these bearings off, clean out any crappy grease that might be in them, and lubricate everything and make sure all the bearings are in good shape and whatnot. And then, like I said, I'm going to try and get some fresh grease and crap in here to get this thing lubricated again. So go ahead and start doing that. So guys, with a lot of patience and persistence, I managed to get this ring nice and free again, so that's pretty cool. You can see that's spinning nice and freely. If this were a newer engine, I'd go ahead and try and take these rings off the piston and scrape and clean up in there. But I ran this thing through my ultrasonic cleaner, and hopefully that did something, because I'm too scared to try and take these rings off. I'm scared that if I try and stretch them enough to get it over the head of the piston, I'm going to break it. So I think I'm just going to roll with it. It really doesn't look that bad down in there. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of... No, not really. Maybe a tiny bit of carbon buildup, but yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and clean out this grease cup. And we're going to throw the piston back in and put the head back on, and we might actually be able to get this thing to fire over tonight. That would be pretty darn cool. So let's go ahead and get on with it. Alright, so the piston's back in and that stuff is all tightened up and whatnot. Bearings have been cleaned out, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the head back on. I'm only doing this for a quick test run because I want to see this thing run, but it does have a broken head gasket. So this will be pulled off again at some point and actually like have the head gasket replaced and whatnot. But for now, I'm too excited to see the thing run. So I'm going to go ahead and slap the head on there. And I think for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal the Witte mag off one of my other engines, slap it on here, and we'll try running it off the little test tank on the carburetor. So let's go ahead and do that. Well guys, something unfortunate just happened. I just went and lapped in the intake valve and got that seating pretty well, and I actually had puffs of smoke coming out the exhaust. It kicked over a couple times. That's how close I was to getting this running tonight. And what do you know, the old braze that had been on the rocker arm support decided to give out. So that sucks. Luckily, I mean, I feel better knowing that it wasn't me that broke it, like that this has been brazed and probably wasn't the strongest, but it still really sucks because I was like this close to getting it to actually run tonight. I had, like I said, I had it pop a couple times and shoot some smoke out of the exhaust, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. So well, that sucks. I'm pretty disappointed, but I guess I'm gonna take this head back off. Well, first I'll contact my friend who can weld. He welded a piece on my Fuller & Johnson for me, and I'll see if he can fix this. And if he can, I'll pull the head off and bring it over to him, and I might have to wait a little while, but I'll get it welded back on by a real pro. Or, option number 2 is if he thinks that this isn't really fixable, seeing as though it's already been brazed once, what I'll do is I'll get 2 pieces of like 1/8" steel plate, and I'll cut them down, and I'll bring them out about this far, and I'll drill a hole through this, and I'll mount them. Or maybe 2 holes or something, or an alignment hole and a bolt hole or whatever. And I'll mount them like this, and I'll drill a hole and make a new support on top and bottom for the thing. But either way, it's not going to get running tonight, so that sucks. But hey, at least I know I was close. Like I said, I had it pop and a big puff of smoke came out of here, so that's usually a good sign. But oh well, so it goes sometimes, I guess. But hey, I guess that means I'll have the head already off when the head gasket gets here, so yep, that's how these things go sometimes, folks. So I guess the next clip of this video won't be shot for a little while. But anyways, I'll be back in what will be a couple seconds for you guys, and we'll see what happens. Alright guys, so it's been a really long time since the last clip of this video was shot. That's how it usually seems to go. But I've actually got this Witte engine just about done. The only thing left to do to it is going to be building a cart, and that's not going to happen in this video. But I've gotten this thing running and running pretty darn well, so I figured I'd go over the stuff I've done to it since the last time you've seen it, and fire it up and show you guys it running for a little bit, and we'll conclude this video. Sorry, it's really windy out today, so hopefully that's not messing with the camera too much. But I believe when I left off, I had just gotten this piece back and welded by my friend's dad. I believe that's where I left off with the time lapse. I've done a bunch of work off camera that was all like boring and annoying work that you guys probably wouldn't have found interesting. So I did it off camera. But since then, I actually got it running. I'll throw a clip in here, the first start. But that was a pretty, I filmed myself and it's actually pretty funny to watch. I was so excited. But after having done that, I got an oiler for it. It's a little bit bigger than the original one probably would have been, but I actually like it. It looks pretty good. The only thing is I had to use a pipe size adapter here to make it work. And then the bigger issue I ran into was, it turns out that the head and the surface that the head meets up with, I'm going to call it the deck. I don't really know if that's the right term, but both the head and the deck were warped. So what was happening is, even with a brand new head gasket, it would have no compression. If you put gasket sealer in it, you could get it to run, but all the cooling water that you'd put in this tank would go right into the cylinder, which obviously isn't any good. Found that out the hard way when I went to fill it up with cooling water that had antifreeze in it, and next thing I know, I was chugging out all sorts of white smoke that smelled like syrup. So what I ended up doing, as you can probably see there, I had my friend who's a machinist cut out a copper gasket, made a really soft copper. He just cut it out on a water jet, probably took him 2 seconds. And I ended up using that and a crap ton of gasket sealer, along with torquing these head bolts down a little bit more than I was originally. And we finally got that to seal. And it's holding water, as you can see. And now this thing runs absolutely amazing. It's got a ton of compression, and it runs great, and I'm very happy with it. So really the only things I still have to do to it are build it a better cart, and at some point I'm going to figure out something to do about this. This lever is really worn out, and it doesn't stay advanced like it should. Normally you should be able to push it to advance and it should stay there. It just wants to keep pushing it back to retard the timing. So what I've been doing, as you can probably see, I take this wire and I wrap it around there and hold it. That may or may not be my permanent solution. I have to see. But I have to look into what really holds this in advance and see if I can replace it. Maybe it's the spring, and maybe the spring's broken. I don't know. I have to look into that a bit more. But worst case scenario, I'll put a piece of wire on the cart that I can hold it back with. I get something a little better than that. I found the original check ball for the fuel line. As you can see, this is my makeshift little gas tank for now. It's a Goya bean can. I do have the original tank, as you guys probably know, and it's perfectly clean inside. I just didn't throw it back on this cart because I'm going to be redoing this cart. But what do you say? Put you guys up on the tripod, and we'll fire this thing up and show you guys how it runs. Alright, let's go for a start. I'm going to go ahead and open the starting tank up about a little bit more than a quarter turn. Make sure the main fuel is off. Make sure the timing is retarded. Got my oiler on, got water in there. And we'll just turn this thing over. Usually it sucks in some fuel with 1 or 2 rotations and it will fire off. So let's see. There we go. Adjusting the mixture now. And I leaned it out too much. I will say this engine starts really easily. The hardest part about starting this is getting it started and switching over from that starting tank to the main gas tank. You'll see I'll probably end up stalling it out a couple times because at the same time I'm trying to mess with that timing lever. And it's kind of a pain in the ass, but once you get it going, it runs great. Now I don't have that open enough. As you can see, just stalled it out trying to switch over to the main tank. So, give her one more whirl here. Actually, forgot to mention, I found this pipe at my grandpa's house, so I like putting that on there. It sounds really cool with the straight pipe. So, I'm actually going to back you guys up a little bit here, so you can see the smoke coming out of the pipe. And let's try it again. There we go. Now it's switched over. There we go. I'm actually extremely happy with this engine. I love how well it runs. Amazing, first of all, but I also really love all the noises it makes and all the mechanisms you can see while it's running. In terms of noises, this mixture buzzes like crazy, as you can probably tell. But with this straight pipe, it's got a really cool sound. This camera doesn't do a great job of picking up a deep, bassy noise like that, so I don't know how exactly it's going to sound, but it's got a really nice, low thumping noise to it, which I love. You can also see here, you've got the Witte EK mag pumping up and down, and over here you can see the eccentric that drives the mag. If we look down in here, you can see the cam itself, along with the governor, and of course the crankshaft, connecting rod, and piston there. What I love about these open crank engines, you can see everything moving, and even to somebody who's not interested in engines at all, they're fascinating, because there's just so much to look at. Got the cooling water in there, and of course our two valves. And this thing will sit here and chug along like this all day until it runs out of gas. It's a very smooth running engine. It almost never misses a beat. You see, this here is our throttle shaft. Go ahead and richen it a tiny bit. You see, it revs up a little bit. I'm not gonna push it too far, the thing will start jumping off the ground. I can see there's a little smoke coming out of there. Maybe I have my oiler set a little bit too fast. Might be able to see it drop through there, I don't know. But overall, I'm extremely happy with this engine. I will say, I probably paid a bit too much, given the issues it has with the warping and whatnot. But, I mean, to be completely honest, I'm pretty happy with it overall, so it's worth it to me, and that's the way I'm looking at it. Plus, with the repairs I've done, it's actually a really smooth running engine. I will say, I have to do something about this straight pipe. This pipe's a little bit too big. I'm going to get one that fits a little better so it's not flopping all over the place, but I put that there just to give you guys an idea of what it will sound like. Thinking maybe even an aluminum baseball bat might work well in there. Not entirely sure though. We step back a bit. You just hear it thumping. It almost sort of kind of sounds like a diesel. Not quite though. We'll rev it up one more time so you guys can hear it working a little bit. So yeah, that's the 1923 Witte Model B. Go ahead and shut her down here. You just shut it off by turning the gas off. Or at least that's the way I do it. You can use the stop button, I guess. I guess both work. But yeah, overall I'm extremely happy with it. Actually, caught my attention. You can see the water's actually starting to steam a little bit. These throttlers definitely run much hotter than the hit and miss variants do. But yeah, like I said probably 100 times now, I'm extremely happy with this. There's a big beaming smile on my face right now, which you guys can't see. But like I said, I probably paid a tiny bit too much for it, but I like it, so I'm not too worried about it. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate that. By all means, leave a comment if you have one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.